What's next for IT? In today's economy, technology touches every aspect of the day-to-day operations of business. There has never been more pressure on IT to deliver for our organizations. So what can we expect over the next decade? We need to think differently about how we approach our work to continue to thrive into the future. This requires all of us to be intentional in how we look at our role going forward. Smart IT is an approach to getting the important things done by transforming the way we think, work, and lead. And now, let's disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk the Smart IT way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, William Reed, and today I'm proud to introduce Ramsay Millar. I'm really excited to have a conversation with him. Today, we're going to talk about a little EA, or for out there who knows that as enterprise architecture. So, Ramsay, hey, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, William. Good to be here.
Well, I was looking around my LinkedIn network, looking for somebody who could cover this topic for us. So, as you know, in the Smart IT Podcast, we're looking ahead for the next decade and beyond, seeing where IT is going, some of the challenges, and what we can do to upskill ourselves to be ready for that. Everything from talking the business language, to be able to handle leadership roles, team building, all the kind of skills you need to add on to all the technology that kind of powers our digital infrastructure. So I came across you, Ramsay, because we're both in an EA group on LinkedIn.
Oh,
I hadn't been in for a while, so I checked in, and you happened to post that week, I believe.
Yeah. I don't post every day. I post once in a while.
Well, I'm glad you did that week, because the universe brought us together.
There it did, yeah.
So we got a chance to connect, and I said, you'd be the perfect guest on here to talk about EA. So let's take a little step back and talk about where EA come from and kind of the history of it. But the one thing I am excited about, everybody, this guy I'm talking to right now, global expert in everything digital transformation, right? This is everything from talking to the business, talking to architects, talking to analysts, project managers, solution architects, software engineers. So for over the last couple of decades, he has seen all the different elements of what it takes for a business to go through that entire process of transforming digitally. So he's had a very long career in IT, everything from the help desk all the way up to that CIO role. So he has a great view of all the different roles, the different types, the titles, the responsibilities. So I think this is going to be a great conversation here. And so I'll let you open up a little bit about yourself. And then,
Sure.
I know you got your own company now helping clients, but you can start there. Just get a little background for the audience.
Well, thanks for sharing. Best advice I can give anybody: you find what you love to do and you'll never work again. And I've been one of those fortunate. So I spent quite a long career. I was very fortunate in my career. A lot of it's dumb luck. I think I came into the industry in 1979. And that was a time when you could just ride the technology all the way up. And my theory at the time was ride each wave, like try to get on the next wave early. Don't be a late adopter, be ahead of the curve. Architects most likely even need to we need to have some sort of our R&D experience. We need to do some play and research in the sandbox. After I left corporate, and I had really awesome bosses and really awesome projects, and a lot of great mentors, I went on to form a private corporation. And somehow it stayed in business 24 years. And somebody told me, gee, that's unusual. Most businesses don't last that long.
Yeah.
And especially in a weird area I'm in a very misunderstood silo called EA, or enterprise architecture. And I liken it, so I founded that company, and all I really do now in the last 20-some years, the mission of that company is, because I'd worked in the trenches of every IT pretty well at the time, it's a tough business.
Yeah.
IT is an extremely tough business. We have our customers we serve who will never understand what we do.
Yeah, that's true.
We never get caught up because
Yeah.
there's always something new. So you have to have certain traits, like you need to want to be humiliated continually, I call it,
Yeah.
because machines get smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
And you have to keep relearning. That's if you don't like doing that, let's not be here. Let's not
Yeah.
go there. But if you kind of like the challenges of learning and growing, and I think the greatest challenges I've really experienced, just to wrap it up about the company and the my corporate experience, was seeing the success that you can help kick off and just watch it fly away, and they get 10 times even more successful. So there are people being successful. The myth is that there's a lot of failure. I'm actually a little, what's that word you got to use? Um,
More
well, I'm a
optimistic.
little skeptical, but my market, when I started, the last thing I want to say about the company, I knew I couldn't compete with big guys because I'm a small insight organization, a boutique, and a marketing budget I don't have. So I just sold to people who got it.
I
If
like
you
that.
don't get it,
Yeah.
I'm not there, right? So it was easy business model. So I think that's what's kept me alive is that there are 10% of at least 10% that really understand how to do things and they know who to find and they see how to get it done and they pull you in. So having said that, but also we want to reinforce my experience in the coming through the trenches from help desk to CIO and loving just about every job except operations manager was kind of tough.
Okay.
Waking up with a pager all night long.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough.
3,000 people are down. And one of my bosses wouldn't buy me a power, uninterrupted power system. Because sometimes you have power outages and
Yeah.
the entire machine, 3,000 people go down. That was a long time ago. But it's a great industry. It's very misunderstood. And yet its core, everywhere you go, it's a core thought process. The body has an architecture. If you just think of the human body, it has an architecture. The dynamics of the earth going around the moon and the sun, that's an architecture. There's things you don't see. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean to say they're not there. So that's kind of my insight on where I come from in architecture.
And it's interesting. You talked about everybody, including EAs, being kind of upfront and not taking too long to get onto the next big thing. So obviously, everybody's talking about AI, and there's a lot of hand
Yeah.
wringing about that. So I guess
Oh
that's
yeah.
another topic where EAs need to be on top of that upfront, reading about
Oh
what's
yeah.
possible, learning, getting their hands dirty on that.
Absolutely. So architecture is nothing more than change. There's nothing. It's more than. It's just super change management. Where do you want to go? Where am I now? How do I get there? That's all architects do. And one of the best metaphors is the building industry. When they build the Freedom Tower in New York, they just don't hack that together. You guys go find some concrete. And to be honest, our industry is so young. We're so far away from architecture. But despite the fact that we keep trying to bring it in and get rid of it over again, architecture is so strong, it's unbelievable. Just think about Bill Gates, think about Apple, think about Amazon, Jeff Bezos. All the richest people in the world are architects.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And everybody thinks they're just nerds. Well, they started out, they're IT people. They're IT driven. They're being rewarded for their insight and putting technology together with business models. And AI, yeah, that's another great one. I'm extremely excited about that. And I've been working with a number of players. AI, I don't think many, just like I liken it to, I built the 200th website in the world.
Mhm.
We were shocked when we went online every day and see two more websites. And now I don't know how many millions there are. Well, it's the same. I like it, the change that we're going through in AI, or soon to be. Nobody knows what the internet was in those days. I would tell people there are going to be addresses on buses, and people said, "What are you talking about? There'll never be an internet address on a bus." well, now we snap pictures and there's links to internets and webs. AI, you got to start living it as soon as you can. And how I'm doing it in my little way is in the architecture knowledge space. Can you imagine no more code? You know, I can have a knowledge repository of all my architectures, and I can just say, do this, do that, do this, do that, and the SQL is written, the code is written. It's going to completely, I think it's going to help enterprise architecture because we never get enough staff to do it. Nobody really understands what it is. That's good. Does everybody need to understand? No. Does everybody understand how to design a beam so it takes a load? No. Those are kind of backroom things that we do. So, yeah, it's very exciting. I predict we're most likely going to have hundreds of AIs. I think we're going to have a medical AI that's your personal AI. And there's going to be good and there's bad. I mean, there's going to be balance, but it all depends how we're going to use it. But I'm pretty excited about the enterprise architect AI, and I'm starting to see it, although a lot smarter people are showing me the way. And I think maybe within 6 months from now, we're going to have some really demonstrable EA, like Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, all these AI tools. There's going to be literally millions of them. Just like they thought there'd be one website or 20. I mean, I first went to IBM to work in my early days, and they said there's not going to be any more than 20 mainframes. Okay, well, there's not going to be more than 500 websites.
Yes.
I think there's going to be millions of AIs, and they're going to be very personal and knowledge-based. Right now, we're at a stage, though, where it's immature. If you're a knowledge expert, if you're a medical expert or any kind of expertise, you'll kind of laugh at the results you're getting because they haven't been trained right. There's not enough knowledge out there that's been vetted. And, with knowledge, there's also a lot of knowledge that may not be well-formed.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be a good time.
Well, I love just the whole topic of EA. Can you start to think about all the changes that the business goes through? And it's like a nice history of that, right? Business, how it's evolving, how it's changing over the decades, and then how technology is following along, in some places leading, but how it's actually supporting that. So let's take a step back and talk about the history of business and technology transformation itself.
Yeah, well, the history of business. So I would just even start with the discovery of fire. I wonder if it was discovered. Maybe there's a forest fire and somebody found a burnt deer. It most likely moved us along. And then they came up. You remember the BC cartoons? We used to have the wheel. And now we see people racing around town standing on these little wheels. But the wheel kind of made the world move faster. And every innovation is most likely arithmetic, where every innovation is more rapid. And right now, we're most likely going through such a rapid rate of growth. And I'll go back to a few other markers first. The invention of the mainframe computing, and then Dr. The woman who invented COBOL. Why do I remember her name? Forget her name. COBOL was actually an object-oriented language. It was a very advanced language based on other languages. It was a business language, business object language, common object business language. And then we had another big move where we moved from to relational database. That's where my career started off with. I got in early at the relational database curve. That meant you could build 5 systems a year instead of 1 every 5 years. Because you could automate, the relational database was just much more powerful. And then along came, the object-oriented programming, which I was right at the beginning of that. And I went all around the world teaching object-oriented programming after I left corporate. And it was phenomenal to go into these shops in Sweden and Hong Kong and all around the world, in the US and the military, to see what people were doing with this language, because it made programming so much faster. Then we had the web, the internet, which is huge, and then the social media thing, which is now going. So even one of these developments just makes us go faster. What isn't going faster is how humans evolve. We're human beings.
Yeah.
we're animals, we're feelers, we're in this real world, we're not in the digital world, and we're trying to be there. So the the digital transformation has been going on forever, and it just shocks me to see how many people bite it off without even thinking there's an expertise to it. Oh no, we'll just do it on Sunday on the weekend. Oh, by the way, read a book. We're going to change 300 people's way of thinking by Monday. We're going to go to microservices, for example.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen. Yeah, I've seen that happen where the boss, 200 guys, we're going to Microsoft services on Monday. Read a book. It's all these things are new ways of thinking. They're not just a knowledge base. You've got to sort of experience them and see what they do to you. So I've been involved in AI like things for so long because I was one of the early adopters of case tools. Case tools were code generators going back 30 years now. Now they get so sophisticated. But with AI, we've got, all the things you don't like to do in technology, all the drudgery.
Oh yeah.
If these AIs can really help us, that's amazing. I had a personal experience once. I was setting up a cloud site with Azure, and I was on this site, and I'm a wannabe technologist. I mean, I learned the skills a long time ago, but every time you have to learn the new terms, they introduce new terms that mean the old ideas.
Same things, yeah.
Like it's not a disk drive, it's some other kind of data lake or whatever, some other term that you don't know. And I'm struggling in there. I'm so close, I can taste it. And I'm talking to this chatbot, and I really don't like chatbots because I don't find them really, they don't have insight. They can only seem to work from a deterministic point of view. And all at once, I'm realizing this thing I'm talking to is really intelligent. And then I realized it was a Microsoft AI. What better tool than grappling with an IP address or some bizarre arcane concept to come through and say, did you mean this?
Yeah,
I
no.
felt like, okay, I think AI is going to work. And so that was when I kind of got turned around on it.
Because fantastic, because like you find the help in a place you didn't expect it. And there's so many different opportunities every single day that you're never going to hire
Oh,
another
yeah.
human to help you with that particular problem necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
And these mundane tasks like, okay, I have nobody to do it for me. So now I have an
Yeah.
ability for somebody to come with a solution to be
Yeah.
there available to help out. Yeah.
It's an assistant. And I'm a real skeptic because I was doing decision tables and all this advanced stuff. But the AI stuff is an entirely new, completely new concept that you have to get your head out of the deterministic approach. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, they're saying now that 75, some leading doctors, AI doctors, AI is helping doctors or diagnosing 75% better than a medical doctor. So what's going to happen with architecture or programming? So, the downside, and I don't know why people want to regulate it. I don't quite understand that. Maybe there's a lot of fear. Definitely regulating it for warfare. Well, that's not going to happen. Most likely, our competitors are already way ahead of us.
Yeah. I think it's this unknown and fear that kind of leads to people to say, "Oh my God, it's scary." So let's have
Oh
somebody
yeah,
come in and give us some guidelines here. Yeah.
yeah. But so transformation is just change, and we don't like to change. People, we don't love to change. We have to kind of like the old stuff and hang on to, but we also have to learn how to continually change when it makes sense. A lot of people just change for the sake of change, and you see so much of that, like, oh, new look and feel, but there wasn't one functionality change. You just have to look all around the screen for the new button that they moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
That is really sad. Productivity loss.
Yeah.
But
Oh, but good point right there. That productivity loss, right? They made an aesthetic change with no
yeah,
functionality improvement, but then they put more friction on the user. And you're like, why
yeah,
did you do it? Why didn't you think through something that will actually help me as opposed to
right.
make it harder? Yeah.
So although we go forward, have you noticed that every 10 years we throw away what we did the last 10 years in technology? For example, in well-matured technologies, you'd have a help drop-down button that would give you an example of the error. Now you're on a smartphone and there's no edit checking and I call smartphones really dumb because there's like 300 apps that don't talk to each other.
Right.
We got so good before smartphones because we could start integrate. Well, we are way better on the other platforms because we can integrate so well with basic standards. But the transformation area in enterprise architecture is, we have groups out there that certify people. They know what to do. We've had a lot of bad experiences with architects in the industry who said they were architects that really aren't. A lot of people, go up the corporate ladder and just try to get they changed the name. Remember when trash collectors were called engineers, sanitation engineers? And then we have the same problem in technology where, I'm now an architect, So, business analyst wasn't good. Okay, now I'm an architect.
Well, that's a good point too, because right now, even some people in IT don't hear the word enterprise architect very often, but maybe hear it on like a cloud architect, and that might be it.
Yeah,
so unless you're a very large enterprise that actually hires an enterprise architect with maybe a couple of people underneath them, a lot of companies and IT teams don't have them officially, right?
Those are the people I work for, is people with anywhere from 3 to 30 architects. And there's some shops with many of them, but the way to make architecture work is it's a team sport. It's a collaborative sport. It's a people sport. It's not a technology game. The technology is the secondary skills, all the skills we have. But if you do not, an architect has no power. We barely have influence. So the best thing we can do is really show value and reduce risk. And never take credit for it. It's not the business person's job. It's their stuff. It's their gift.
Yeah.
So that's how, if you make something valuable to somebody else and they get it, architecture's done its job. It doesn't have to be an ego game. It's basically just being a team player, bringing back the project manager, the analysts, the program. The programmers are more in the construction level, but the architects are more at the inception phase, about the dream phase, like where do you want to build this thing? Which direction? And there's many architectures out there. Architecture is very, as you know, could be very complex, and every site I go to have many different nuances. In fact, most architectures are so brittle and broken. Most companies have like hundreds of applications they never use that they do use, and it's quite a broken land. So there's a huge opportunity there to clean up and save a lot of money, and also put our companies and our governments in a position of having, excellence. It's not that hard to get there, really. So it's a very challenging industry. I want people to get into it. The next generation, there'll still be a job there, even though we got AI. We still need some humans.
Well, definitely. Well, that's a good point, because I think when IT professionals look at that big problem, right, they overhearing what the business is saying they want to do, right? Something faster, transact faster, bring the information straight to the front lines in different and new formats, while you're protecting privacy and the data that you're using. So I think some people are kind of jumping right into the technology, right? They say, well, we're going to spin something up, a couple of clouds, a couple of different DevOps initiatives going on.
Yeah.
There might not be anybody necessarily in charge with the EA title. They say, let's make sure we're thinking about the entire picture, how it's going to support the business, like you said, potentially save money, right? So we can do cleanup, call it, take some of the older applications out, make something more newer infrastructure. So let's talk about that. If you look maybe like a cloud architect somewhere else.
Yeah, let's do that. We have some really amazing examples that nobody seems to notice. Admiral Grace Hopper was funded by the US Navy to build COBOL. It was put in the public domain. Although Al Gore took a lot of punishment, yes, he was part of the Treasury project to fund the internet. The US federal government funded the internet. Without the US federal government and the partnership between private and public, we wouldn't have internet. We wouldn't have the GPS network. So I have a lot of time. Right now, we're in an existential battle with the world, because most likely the US is the most leading edge technology warfare capability in the world, and still they're far ahead. I've had some ability to work with the US Air Force a lot, and they just came out, going back to what you just said, they've now going to clean shop. We used to outsource all the code till we found out the chips. made in China and other countries had listeners in them,
Yes.
and they would deteriorate after 2 years, and the planes would fall apart. Well, that's all gone. There's been some things behind the scenes. People don't even pay attention to the news, where we're onshoring the code, we're onshoring the technology. We're not going to give out the technology easily. And the Secretary of the Air Force sent a letter about 3 years ago, and they really mean business. They're calling it security DevOps, security development operation. But level one, you don't get your concept of operation. If you don't get approved, you don't get approval to operate unless you have enterprise architecture number one. Because you cannot build an architecture for warfare or for military or for finance or for anything large. Like even a good example is Amazon. That Jeff Bezos is an architect. He laid down the law. If you do certain things as a programmer, you're fired. You have to use architecture. You can't just hack out your own solution. So we're seeing that happening, and the ability to clean up now. So I think what you're seeing is a massive behind-the-scenes movement in not only the military, definitely the private sector, with examples of Amazon and all the large business corporations making money this way simply, is a massive attitude towards cleaning up. In fact, I get involved in that a lot. We call it greenfield versus cleaning up. Sometimes a transformation is better to just launch the new stuff and keep the old stuff running, not just stop one and throw the other one out. It's most likely better to start a small startup in your company with the new technologies under the auspices of the architecture or research and development or some group in your engine in your group. That's right, reporting right to the boardroom. Because right now, AI and all of that stuff is going to completely change retail. If you think retail changed now, like go find me the cheapest pair of socks, So you can see how these things are going to start, and way more complicated than that.
Yeah, I'm thinking just about
so yeah,
critical
we're seeing a
infrastructure.
lot of cleanup in existing architectures because we now have the science, we now have the tools. We can go out and say, show me all the applications that are just not producing value show us the bad data. And which leads us to another big problem is when you ask people in corporate America, in IT departments, what's the quality of our data? They're saying maybe 4% quality is good of all the data we have. So if the AI is going after that data, it begs the question. And who's going to, if an AI machine finds me for speeding or whatever is going to happen to me, I don't know. How do I dispute it? Well, maybe they made a mistake.
That's a good point. So that's the human element of thinking about it up front.
We need way more human element in the industry. We're sort of losing track of the whole human element. It's all like we're all machines now. And did you hear the news that came out the other day how Hamas tricked the U.S. They tricked the intelligence industry. You know how they did it? They've been planning for a year. There was a news piece. They aren't using digital. They're using analog copper telephone wire.
Oh yeah.
So you stay out of the digital world, and you can do it. So, there's all kinds of ways of getting around the digital world. So that's another That's another thing an architect should be looking out for threat. And we've got some amazing stuff. We've got stuff working right now that people won't even maybe ever hear about. The leading edge architecture theory right now in security and threat is having machines fighting machines. Oh, yeah. And I worked with a guy from 20 years ago that was starting the idea. He was studying microbiology and how bacteria infects the body. And he was taking those theories into digital. They could create like 10,000 good guys that would go after the 500 bad guys in the network for a threat detection. And that's where we are now. We have those capabilities, but of course they're not commonplace.
It opens up a lot of possibilities. So design an AI machine to go out to find vulnerabilities in all aspects of the entire infrastructure.
Exactly. That's another area. Yeah. So if we can get much more secure machinery, then we're a lot better off. A lot of us can be a
Sure.
lot. Governments, people, corporations can be better off with more. It's always good to have somebody make you more secure.
But also leaves another opportunity, right, in some of our physical structures. We talk about operational technology, OT, all
Right.
SCADA devices. I mean, this tech hasn't been touched in decades, right? And now we're trying to
Right.
pull more information, more remote control of it. So that's a big
Right.
opportunity. Healthcare want to get more embedded devices inside the
Oh,
body.
healthcare is amazing,
Yeah,
isn't it?
so it's like,
Yeah.
so if you want to do anything that touches humans or have an
Yeah.
impact on any business, we're talking about this EA need. I mean, really across the board, really, right? We can't just do a piecemeal anymore. I'm trying to think
No,
where,
that's an encouraging area you touched on because I've been working a lot with the healthcare, and they're maybe America's been criticized for having some broken healthcare, but at the same time, when you look behind the scenes, that's a good thing because that really motivates you to fix it.
yeah,
And so, if you look at it from a price point of view, it's maybe cheaper and more efficient to do the right job behind the scenes and not have all these redundancies and problems. So we're seeing I mean, things happening in healthcare, they're phenomenal. Like people running around with these wrist bits, getting their blood pressure taken, their heart monitored. I'm in the age group now where people are tending to be more ill as you get
yeah,
older,
yeah,
and people are getting heart operations by having a tiny incision in their crotch somewhere in their hip, and the things go up and do the work, and they're outpatients in one day or the same day they're released with a heart. I just had a partner who had a major fuse sealed in his heart. He was out the same evening, the same day. That would never happen. He would have died 5 years ago. So the technologies that are in, and also I see more architects don't just deal with verticals. Like most of us think vertical silo.
okay,
Architects are horizontal and vertical, and then the other third dimension is time. So we only have those three dimensions: horizontal, vertical, and time. Or so that's a multi-dimensional view of systems. Uh, there's a terrific amount of good things being done in the healthcare industry.
now assume thinking it from
Oh
a,
yeah,
enterprise level, we want to think about if we're going to put some tech inside the human body, we want to know how we're going to update the device or the code and how we secure it and who
right,
does it. All those
right,
questions up front got to be embedded in the entire
yeah.
design process. So let's talk about this design process, right? Security, ability to update it, ability to monitor it. Is it costing money? How much did it take to put it
Yeah,
in?
so design is one of my favorite topics in the world because I came through design to architecture. I mean, I like to build. Then when you like to build, you learn design. You don't learn design at the beginning. You most likely start building. Now, if I would have
Yeah,
designed it differently, that
yeah,
happens to everyone, every programmer in the world. Oh, if I could do it again, if I would do it differently. And then you think about 5 ways you could have designed it, not one.
yes,
And so design is the ability to, and I was sort of at one time designing this house, and looking at it from an architecture point of view. And it's huge. People think requirements aren't important. But yeah, requirements are super. Without a requirement, somebody's just going to give you anything they want.
mm,
What color of house do you want? Which way should the window face? There's 2,000. I came out of engineering, so for me it's easy.
yeah,
We had a bill of materials. Those are requirements, like how thick should the wood be, how pressure tested. We don't have any problem specifying that because that's easy. It comes to software, oh no, it's good enough. We don't need requirements. They're not useful. And
yeah.
then at the end of,
Yeah,
yeah, so the design side is how do you get into design without spending time and money, without building it, right? And that's where my greatest love of life came back to. I didn't know it was the whole idea of modeling, the idea of modeling everything. 10 ways from Sunday, I was a highway engineer, and we would used to be able to design one, maybe 3 miles of freeway, complex freeway, maybe in 1 month. And then along came computers. We were doing 10 design concepts a month. So we were using machinery. So the moment you can use machinery to help the experts figure out the best, most cost efficient design, and design should be lightweight. So so you're getting into a really good topic there. So everybody looks at programming, which we love, and we're good at it. We can keep doing it. We'll keep doing better. But then once you build something as a program, then you realize about design. And then when you do design more, then you start, oh my God, there's architecture behind this. There's
Yeah.
some sort of, oh, I need data. Oh my God, I need a user interface, or I need all these other pieces that I never dreamt about. Because I don't want to build them all myself. I want to snap them in and reuse them. And that's where architecture comes in, the whole snap in. Jeff Bezos most likely was brilliant because he said if he really made secure protocol, HTTPS. He said you could sell things on the internet if you could trust them and you could secure them and you could put money in and nobody could be fraudulent. Well, he succeeded because most people don't know his story. It's a fascinating architecture story. He took every company in the world, Cisco, every server company, I don't know which server company he was dealing with, and he said, build me my own proprietary stuff. So Cisco built them the routers, Sun built them servers. And so his system is so secure, even the US federal government runs military security on AWS in a hidden level. So his networks are so secure. That's architecture. He took the basic open architecture and locked it down. And then what he did beyond that, which is the bigger story, he went to the US federal government and said, if you have any risk security threat penetration, I will take responsibility for it. Oh my God.
Accountability.
That
Leadership.
blew away. People just signed up, said, okay, you're going to take responsibility for it. Yes, I am. Because he knew how secure it was. So that was the whole .gov cloud you may have heard about.
Yeah.
That's been out there running for many years where our military runs. And you could drive, it's like driving you can send stealth data through the network and nobody even sees it. There's no data moving.
Yeah.
That's architecture. And behind all these things is architecture.
You know what's powerful about this, right? Because this is allowing the business to really be bold, right? So if you want to say I'm gonna take a patient's life in my hand, or I'm a remotely controlled, automatic car making factory floor that's automatic, control something under the water in space. You say we got to have a solid foundation. So you talk about security to be able to monitor it, see what the cost is. That's very, very powerful to give a business confidence that this platform
William,
in the bill.
William, you've touched on why we need architecture. And if you're in the business of saving life or anything that's critical, you need architecture. So the investment isn't that great, to be honest. But if you're not, if you just write hello world programming and you don't really care, but as time goes on, we have seen architecture getting stronger. It has taken way longer than I thought. I've worked with companies who've literally hired 3 architecture teams, fired 3 architecture teams in 3 years, and they keep trying. And it usually isn't the people; it's usually the culture. You're up against the biggest thing we're up against is cultural thinking, and you like people like there's a lot of them, but the leaders I like to talk about in the tech industry, they're team players. They have to be. They want the brightest people like Microsoft. Anybody who's bright, come on over. They're hiring people in Seattle. I work in Seattle or have friends there a lot. I'm very close to Microsoft once in a while. The brightest people in the world. Because we want a lot of people that disagree, that can work together to see things from different points of view, not my way or the highway. My way or the highway doesn't work in an intelligent industry. And we're in an industry that really requires, if not intelligent people, it requires a lot of intelligence to make things work. So you get the really smart people, and guess what? Things start working. It's very important. You've touched on why architecture is important if it's mission critical.
So for the audience that are listening, right? So maybe they have a cloud architect title, maybe they have systems engineer title. I mean, how do they make that jump, right? So obviously there's some certification paths you can go. People talk about TOGAF or something. Some people think it might be too cumbersome, some of those certification tracks. But I mean, where do people go? Are there groups? I mean, how do you pivot and say?
Oh, that's a good question. So the biggest problem with TOGAF, the biggest problem with our industry is that we have certification bodies. And for some reason, the certification bodies overdo everything. And there's no common sense. Like TOGAF is one of the most rigorous, best models. But I've had people say to me, I'm not going to use the 300 diagrams they recommend. Well, nobody talks about the fact, no, it's only 5 you might need. There seems to be no, in the certification bodies, it's about passing the exam and meeting those points. But where do we teach common sense and insight about you can stand up TOGAF in 5 days? It's like, but they make it like this long, painful. I've had many architects say that to me, and I said, no, there's lightweight. You can tailor it. It's like a jacket or a suit. You take it off the shelf and you tailor. But yeah, TOGAF is always going to be there. The standards are really getting tight around TOGAF, Archimate, and another group I really like, International Association of Solution Architects. Most likely, we need more solution architects. The people who can really talk to the architects or the business people, about, because business people go for golf with the sales guy and they say, I want to buy that.
Yeah.
That happens often. I mean, face it, I worked for a healthcare company, can't mention names. I think they had 10 of everything. They had scheduling systems. They had 10 scheduling systems. So if you were a doctor, you used one scheduling system. If you're the ICU, you had another scheduling system, and there was no integration. So the staff had to learn 10 different insurance systems, 10 different integration scheduling systems. That's not architecture. So yeah, International Association of Software Engineers, TOGAF and Archimate, 100% behind them always. I'm TOGAF certified. I've been training it for years. It's really common sense. Unfortunately, many architects, they see us as people who say no. Unfortunately, that's happened. I don't know how that ever occurred. Maybe we need a whole new fresh air. There's a lot of architects that aren't like that. I mean, the people I work for and report to in my consulting service are men way younger than me who've done both business and IT.
Interesting. Okay.
They're not blindsided anymore. Like in the past, there was these business IT wars, which I never got into. I was always on the business side. I'm an IT guy. I'm on the business side. Then but there are these wars that go on. I just worked for the. So, anyways, there's companies that can take months to implement something that another group can do in a week, or 2 or 3 or 4. So it's culture. It always boils down to culture, setting the right culture, letting people grow, letting us make mistakes, basically giving us a playpen to play in, instead of managing to the project manager who says it has to be done by Friday. I don't care if it's good or not. Just say you did it, which is kind of cynical, but it does occur. This idea of, checking off the boxes and everybody's, I'm not going to fail. One of the big failures we had, remember, in the Obamacare rollout, not one PM went to the president and said, this isn't going to work. Even if it takes your head off, your job is to tell leadership what they may not want to hear. And that's how sometimes I've had my head taken off, but by and large, as an architect, you have to point out the risk right away. They had a timeline to roll it out in 30 days, but they're still working in September on the user interface.
and you bring up a good point there, right? So if you're not if you want to hide the bad news, then you can introduce the whole market risk, right? I'm going to introduce something to the market that's not ready for you to worry about project risk, right? So now we're starting to get into these different roles. We got the project manager, we got a business analyst, maybe we got an enterprise architect, we got maybe a financial analyst. There's a lot of different people that got their hands in there with competing role, I guess, goals here. And I guess there really should be only one role, right? The business role, right? No matter
the business role, and I think the team that works the best in architecture is the EA or solution architect, whoever that is, architects of some kind, the PMs and the BAs, and we all really help each other. People don't see that. As a team, we actually save each other time and pain. And when you can put those three dynamics together, not competing or not, and you can have that culture build, it works great because, well, now the PM's got his back covered, the BA can do their analysis, the architect can make sure it's going in the right direction. And if companies can align that group of people, those three together, a business-driven approach, you've got it made every time. And we really can help each other. Unfortunately, sometimes people get in their silos, and silos are contrary to architecture. Architecture cannot be siloed. It's a horizontal world too. And so that's a really good point you make.
So we need to get the EA, the BA, and the PM to hang out in the bar,
Right on.
chill on.
Hang out in the bar, invite the government's risk compliance guy, and we can all help each other big time. Like I need the risk compliance officer because he understands exactly what I'm saying. We're at such high risk. We're also at risk by doing nothing. People seem to think doing nothing is no risk. That's the worst. And then some people think doing everything now at the beginning is wrong too. But high low risk, no. You can have a playpen, but doing nothing even has a worse risk. William, I don't know. It would be interesting to see a book or a study. How many companies have completely gone because of revolutions and transformations in the last 10 years? You never will hear about them again. I mean, big ones. Look what happened to compact computers. Weren't they one of the most, and you go to each one of these companies, you discover where they made a mistake, right? They said they were the dominant seller of PCs and servers. Nobody's ever going to buy a computer online.
Remember that.
Along comes Dell, you know?
Yes.
To me, that's the heart of architecture and staying ahead. The guy, he said, no, what we're going to do is we know corporate buyers aren't going to, go to the internet, but we're going to offer something else. You design your machine on the internet, on the web, and we'll actually put a high support for calls on, we'll support a lot of people on the phone so we can help you learn to buy. What a great business model, because now we don't have to ship all the boxes to Best Buy and hope they sell. You're buying on demand from what people are just sort of designing from their own point of view. And that's an old story now. I mean, that's kind of, but we need to do, and that's how we're going to stay ahead, is by basically trying to have a group of people, which should be the architects, forward looking. They should maybe be looking at least 1 to 2 years ahead and have a budget to play with that little thing that's coming 2 years out. That's what everybody does at the high end. Even when they were starting as scrappy garage architects, we'd have the latest toy, like the latest AI or the latest server, the latest web, whatever, and play with it, because you might find out how to use it and how to leverage it. Because quite often it doesn't always, I was looking at AI the other day and somebody said, well, no more SQL. I said, what? No. I said, really? Because I used to teach it and I used to write it, but it's ugly. How can a business person ever get knowledge that they have to go to some arcane person and get an SQL written? Well, AI can do that for you. And that's going to be great. Give me all of the applications that are costing this much money with this many trouble tickets that are obsoleted or on older platforms that don't use a secure internet protocol. Boom. They're back at you, and now you can go through your whole list of work and make your job simple.
That'd be quite powerful. Because we still have organizations struggling with simple asset management, right?
That's it.
That's it. Systems, applications, things they bought, produced, built, that's in the infrastructure, and they don't know about it. I mean, how does that happen in 2023? There's no...
It's maybe even worse than we think, because I go through like 10 companies a year, and it's way worse than you think. It's like, but to me, I see that as positive, because that's a huge opportunity for an architect, wherever they are, to show value, as long as we're given the mandate to do that. Unfortunately, it's hard to explain to a business lead what you do. First of all, they don't want to know. Should they know? No, but they should find some value in it. If they look behind the scenes from some of the stories we've related here, like why did Amazon do so well? Because he had certain insight. Why did Compaq or Dell do better? Because the insight. There's these insights you get, whether you're a business or IT guy, it wouldn't matter. And those insights are basically going to change the whole lay of the situation. I mean, we could go on that one. I mean, if you keep doing root cause analysis, keep looking behind the scenes, like the story from Hamas, like how everybody was dumbfounded. How could they ever fool one of the best security services in the world, in Israel? they used analog telephones. They didn't use wire because all surveillance now is completely electronic. Well,
Like, that goes
there's
back to let's go back to us using our human minds, our
insight.
human
Yep.
intelligence, and
Yep.
not just relying on tech all the time, which I think, like you
Yeah,
mentioned
we're
before.
overly reliant on tech. And some of the times in my career, I've actually told my people said, why do you think technology is going to solve that problem? Let's wait a year. I've never been one for it. Does it fit? Does it work? Maybe if you wait 2 years, it'll be more mature.
I do want to ask you what this question is about skill, right? So people listen to this conversation may think, and this is only for the big companies, right? Smaller companies just don't have the manpower or the budget to either hire an EA or bring a team on board. What do you say when they say, "Hey, Ramsay, EA we can't do an EA. We're too small for this."
No, I understand that one too well. Well, first of all, if you take a really forensic view and you were a financial auditor and you looked at I'll say medium-sized company, what would be small or medium? Enterprise. Most companies are what they call small enterprise. What does Microsoft define that as? 3 to 500 people, not just in IT, or there's a certain size. If you could take a forensic approach, I could bet any day of the year, but I couldn't prove it, that you're losing and wasting more money than it would ever cost, and you'd still reap money back with an architecture team. So I see it's like a mechanic, pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah,
And
make a decision. Yeah.
And look at all the fraud and all the data thefts. I mean, that would have been avoided with good architecture. However, so I to me, the business model is there to sustain it between anywhere from like 50 to 300 to 400 easy. And then nowadays also it's easier, William, because we now have way more people in business who understand tech better. It's kind of weird. We went through a period of time when actually the leadership didn't understand tech, and that was really dangerous. And now that's slowly going away. Unfortunately, then we get a whole new generation coming along that thinks tech's in a hand phone, and it's not. That's just one tech. So if we're continuing, but so skill sets, we have to find those people who basically know how to bring a group of people together with no power. Power isn't the name of the game in architecture. What is, we only can show people by proving it. And so we need to be allowed to prove it. And you know what? Here's my biggest concern, and I want to jump into your answer there too a bit more. The biggest concern I have, the companies I work for, I'm under NDA. They're not going to go out and say, look what I did.
Yeah.
There was a great example. Oh yeah, Dell Computers wrote a letter in CIO magazine or an article. They were so far ahead of Compaq and competition. The CIO actually had an article published about how he did his new business model, just rubbing their face in the ground, saying, "I know you'll never catch up." And that's kind of where I like to see this strategic thing go. That's what a CIO should be delivering the organization, is finding new insights. But we need to find people who are, and there's so many opportunities right now. It's scary how many jobs we need, how many bright young people we need in the architecture group. Typically a solution architect is somebody who's been around in programming for a minimum of 10 years, 5 to 10 years. So we need more solution architects. That's a great way to get in. Somebody who likes problems, somebody who has a problem and says, there's 5 solutions to this problem. We don't know what they are, but we're going to find them. And then so the skill sets there, there's a lot of good training companies out there. I've worked with a number of training corporations. I worked with Learning Tree International for about 10, 15 years. It was a great job because I got free continual training. I get to teach all these great people the leading edge stuff. And you get to see what corporations are doing right now. But we got a huge challenge in the US. There's going to be a big shift in programming, but at the same time, we're still always going to need those architects for many, many more years. And things are never going to stay the same. And I would say that maybe things are going to move so fast that maybe we'll see even more corporations and government agencies fail. because things are just going to move so fast. COVID was maybe the worst thing that happened to us because we've had a reduction of the IT departments have just been completely decimated. Everybody wanted to work at home, and then they realized how nice it was, and then nobody wants to work anymore. There's all that going. So there's huge opportunities for any young person who's 20, 25, anything to get into. I really want you folks in here because it's a great industry to be in, and the skill sets, like you got to have a lot of people skills because unfortunately a lot of us have technical skills, so we have to learn the people skills deliberately. I've always been lucky. I've always had gift of the gab. So, but I had to learn a lot of communication skills, big time. Even though I like to be communicated with people, that doesn't mean to say you have a skill. So, people skills were most likely number one. And I also put number one for me is attitude. Do you have the right attitude? The aptitude. Do you like to be humiliated continually and continually learn?
Yeah. Get back up the next day and do it again.
Flagellating yourself all the time.
Oh man, this has been great. We can go on for much more. I know this is a good stopping
Thanks,
point.
William. Good time to cover an interesting topic. Thank you so much.
And it's been invaluable, I think, for the audience to kind of look at enterprise architecture as a professional path. So once again, thanks. And everybody, this has been another episode of the Smart IT Podcast. And I'm enjoying these conversations. And I look forward to seeing you again. In the meantime, if you need more information, go to williamreed.info.
Thank you for starting the channel, too. That's great. Great work.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, William.
Thanks for joining another episode of the Smart IT Podcast, where we explore what's next for IT and disrupt the status quo, simplify the complex, and reduce risk together. If you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and leave your comments. And for more Smart IT wisdom, check out my website at williamreed.info.